Tonight, we will wander slowly into the peaceful silence of the ancient Greek night, where quiet roads meet beneath gentle stars, and a patient goddess carries a steady flame. Allow your breathing to become calm and unhurried as the world grows still around you. Close your eyes, settle into comfort, and let this timeless journey through moonlit crossroads and forgotten paths gently guide your thoughts toward restful sleep. Long before many familiar stories of the Olympian gods were told, the quiet presence of Hecate already rested within the ancient imagination. She belonged to an older layer of Greek tradition, where the boundaries between earth, sea, and sky felt gentle rather than fixed. Her name appears with calm dignity among the earliest generations of divine beings. Unlike gods known mainly for battles or triumphs, Hecate entered mythology as a steady and watchful figure. The oldest tales describe her not through loud displays of power, but through a quiet influence that reached many corners of the living world. According to the poet Hesiod, Hecate was born to the Titan Perses and the gentle Titaness Asteria. Perses was associated with strength, while Asteria carried connections to the stars and the peaceful light of the night sky. Their daughter inherited a place unlike any other. Her origins linked her to the ancient Titans, yet her story continued into the age of Zeus and the Olympians. In this way, Hecate became a graceful bridge between older generations of divine beings and the newer order that followed. Asteria herself carried an atmosphere of quiet mystery. Ancient tradition remembered her as a goddess connected with stars that appear after sunset and with the stillness of the evening heavens. Through her mother, Hecate inherited an association with gentle darkness rather than fear. Night was not always imagined as a place of danger. It was also the time when travelers rested, fires burned softly, and distant constellations slowly crossed the sky. These peaceful qualities remained close to Hecate throughout later mythology. Hesiod praised Hecate with unusual warmth. While many divine figures were introduced through long family histories or dramatic conflicts, Hecate received careful admiration for the honors she possessed. She was said to have influence over the earth, the sea, and the heavens. This broad reach was presented not as domination, but as a sign that her presence quietly touched many parts of existence. Even in early poetry, she seemed to belong wherever natural boundaries gently met one another. When Zeus established his rule after the struggle between the Olympians and the Titans, many ancient powers changed or faded. Yet Hesiod tells that Zeus honored Hecate instead of diminishing her place. He allowed her ancient privileges to remain. This detail gave her a unique position among the older divine generation. Rather than standing apart from the Olympian world, she continued beside it, carrying forward traditions that reached back into the earliest remembered ages of Greek myth. The gifts connected with Hecate were remarkably varied. Ancient poetry described her as offering prosperity, success in contests, abundance in fishing, healthy livestock, and blessings upon families when the gods approved. These descriptions reveal a goddess woven quietly into everyday life. Her presence was not limited to distant temples or heroic adventures. Instead, she appeared wherever ordinary people hoped for steady fortune, peaceful work, and the gentle favor of the divine. Only gradually did Hecate become more strongly associated with crossroads, nighttime journeys, and the unseen spaces between familiar places. These later traditions grew over centuries as Greek religion evolved. Even then, the earliest image remained beneath the newer layers. She continued to be remembered as an honored goddess whose influence extended across many parts of the world. Her quieter origins remind us that mythology often changes gently, adding new meanings without completely erasing the old ones. The Greeks often understood divine power through balance rather than separation. Hecate reflected this way of thinking. She belonged to several realms without fully replacing the gods already connected to them. Earth, sea, and sky remained distinct, yet her blessings could quietly pass among all three. This broad presence gave her an unusual character. She was neither confined to one landscape nor defined by a single role. Instead, she moved softly through many parts of the ancient imagination. Early artistic representations of Hecate were often simple. Before later images showed her in triple form, she frequently appeared as a single dignified woman standing calmly. This older vision reflected her earliest place in mythology. The more familiar three-bodied form developed over time, especially as her connection with Crossroads became stronger. Remembering the earlier tradition allows her origins to remain peaceful and clear, before symbolism gradually grew richer through the passing centuries. Many ancient sanctuaries honored local gods with customs that varied from one region to another. Hecate was no exception. Different communities emphasized different aspects of her character, yet a thread of respect remained constant. Whether remembered for blessings, protection, or quiet guidance, she occupied a place that inspired careful devotion rather than loud celebration. Her worship reflected the calm rhythm of daily life and the enduring trust placed in familiar sacred traditions. The world in which Hecate first appeared was deeply connected to natural cycles. Day slowly yielded to evening, seasons returned in steady order, and stars followed familiar paths across the heavens. Her mythology settled naturally within this rhythm. Instead of interrupting the quiet movement of nature, she seemed to accompany it. The peaceful transitions between light and darkness became gentle reminders of the spaces where her presence was quietly imagined. Ancient Greek religion rarely remained unchanged for long. New stories blended with older beliefs, and local traditions shaped familiar gods in different ways. Hecate's origins reveal this gradual unfolding especially well. Her earliest identity remained rooted in honor and blessing, while later generations added deeper associations with mystery and the night. Both traditions lived together, creating a figure whose quiet complexity reflected the evolving character of Greek mythology itself. For many listeners across the centuries, Hecate represented calm attention rather than sudden action. She watched over places where one path gently became another, where endings slowly welcomed beginnings. These ideas emerged naturally from her ancient origins, long before dramatic legends gathered around her name. Her presence suggested patience, continuity, and thoughtful passage through the changing seasons of both nature and human life. The earliest chapters of Hecate's story offer a peaceful beginning. Born among the Titans, honored by Zeus, and remembered across generations, she carried an enduring place within Greek mythology. Her origins invite a slower way of seeing the ancient world, where divine figures were not always defined by conflict. Sometimes they simply remained, steady and watchful, like the quiet stars that appear each evening and patiently illuminate the gentle darkness. In the ancient Greek world, a crossroads was more than a meeting of roads. It was a quiet place where ordinary travel touched the unseen. People slowed their pace as they arrived, aware that different destinations began from the same patch of earth. Such places invited careful thought, gentle offerings, and respectful silence. Rather than symbols of confusion, crossroads often represented the peaceful acceptance that many paths could exist at once. They reminded travelers that every journey unfolded through countless small choices, each one carried forward beneath the same broad sky and watched by powers older than memory. Among the deities connected with these quiet places, Hecate became their most enduring guardian. Ancient poets described her as a goddess whose influence extended across earth, sea, and sky. At the meeting of Rhodes, her presence suggested protection rather than fear. Travelers honored her before continuing into the unknown, trusting that wisdom could accompany every careful step. The crossroads became a peaceful threshold where endings and beginnings rested side by side without conflict, allowing each traveler to continue with a calmer heart. The Greeks often marked crossroads with small shrines or stone pillars dedicated to Hecate. These simple places did not need great temples to feel sacred. A modest altar, a carefully placed stone, or a small carved image could quietly express devotion. People paused, offered thanks, and continued their journeys. The simplicity of these shrines reflected an ancient understanding that holiness could dwell in ordinary landscapes, where daily life and divine presence gently shared the same ground. Each lunar month, households sometimes prepared offerings known today as Hecate's Daipnon. Food was left at crossroads as an act of reverence and purification. Ancient writers described these offerings as gifts for the goddess and for restless spirits associated with the night. Those who placed them usually departed without looking back, allowing the quiet ritual to remain undisturbed. The practice reflected respect, humility, and the belief that harmony could be restored through simple acts performed with sincere intention. The number 3 gradually became closely linked with Hecate because of the meeting of 3 roads. Later artists often portrayed her with 3 forms facing different directions, symbolizing awareness of every path at once. Earlier Greek literature did not always describe her this way, yet the association grew naturally through centuries of worship. The image suggested completeness rather than division, expressing the quiet idea that wisdom can gently embrace many directions without losing its calm center. Night brought a different atmosphere to these sacred places. Sounds softened, shadows lengthened, and familiar roads seemed more mysterious beneath the stars. For the ancient Greeks, darkness was not always something to fear. It was also a time of reflection, dreams, and peaceful stillness. Hecate's presence within the night offered reassurance that unseen places were not empty, but carefully watched by a goddess who understood transitions and guided quiet passage between one place and another. Crossroads also carried symbolic meaning within the human mind. Every important decision resembles a meeting of roads, where one direction is chosen while others remain behind. Ancient mythology often expressed inner experiences through landscapes, allowing physical places to mirror emotional journeys. Hecate's crossroads became gentle reminders that change belongs to life itself. Moving forward did not erase the roads left behind. Instead, each chosen path quietly became part of a larger story unfolding over time. Dogs were closely associated with Hecate in many ancient traditions. Their watchful nature suited a goddess connected with boundaries and nighttime travel. Ancient authors sometimes mention the sound of distant dogs as a sign of her unseen presence. Rather than emphasizing fear, these stories reflected careful guardianship. The faithful animal became a symbol of alertness, companionship, and quiet protection during journeys through the stillness of evening and the silence before dawn. Because crossroads marked boundaries, they also represented moments of transformation. A traveler arriving from one village entered another world by continuing forward. Farmers, merchants, pilgrims, and messengers all shared these spaces, each carrying different hopes and responsibilities. Hecate's sacred places welcomed every peaceful traveler equally. The roads themselves became gentle reminders that human lives constantly crossed, separated, and continued onward beneath the same patient heavens. Unlike many grand sanctuaries built upon mountain peaks or within famous cities, Crossroads belonged to everyone. They stood beside fields, forests, and humble roads used each day. Their sacred character emerged through repeated acts of remembrance rather than impressive architecture. Each respectful offering, quiet pause, and whispered prayer added another layer of meaning. Over generations, these ordinary places quietly gathered extraordinary significance within the shared memory of the ancient Greek world. Ancient literature presents Hecate as a goddess worthy of honor from both gods and mortals. In Hesiod's Theogony, she receives exceptional respect and broad authority granted by Zeus himself. This distinguished position helps explain why worship at Crossroads endured for centuries. Her guidance was not limited to a single aspect of life, but gently touched many forms of human experience, from travel and household ritual to moments of thoughtful transition. As centuries passed, artistic and religious traditions changed, yet the image of Hecate at the crossroads remained remarkably enduring. Sculptors, poets, and storytellers continued returning to the peaceful meeting of roads as a powerful symbol. Even when beliefs evolved, the crossroads still expressed timeless ideas about choice, protection, and movement. The landscape itself carried the memory of countless footsteps, quietly preserving echoes of devotion beneath open skies. To walk toward a crossroads in ancient Greece was to enter a place where ordinary geography met quiet symbolism. Earth, memory, and mythology blended without urgency. Every stone reflected countless journeys taken before, while every road invited another peaceful beginning. Hecate's sacred presence transformed these intersections into gentle reminders that every path unfolds gradually, guided by patience, awareness, and respectful attention to the world both seen and unseen. Within the calm rhythm of Greek mythology, the crossroads remained a place of balance rather than haste. Roads separated, yet they also connected distant lives through shared travel. Hecate stood as the quiet guardian of this harmony, honoring both departure and arrival with equal grace. Beneath the steady light of the moon, the meeting of paths became a lasting symbol of peaceful transition, where every traveler could continue onward accompanied by the gentle dignity of the ancient night. Among the many symbols linked with Hecate, none appears more often than the quiet glow of her twin torches. Ancient poets and artists imagined her carrying them through the deep hours of evening, not as blazing flames of alarm, but as steady lights that softened uncertainty. Their brightness was gentle enough to reveal a winding path without chasing away every shadow. In Greek thought, darkness was not always something to conquer. It was simply another part of the world's rhythm, and Hecate's torches offered calm companionship as night unfolded around hills, forests, and silent roads. The torches also recalled one of Hecate's best-known appearances in myth. After Persephone vanished into the underworld, Hecate heard the distant cries carried across the earth. Taking her burning torches, she joined Demeter in the careful search. She did not know every answer at once, yet her light helped guide the journey toward understanding. The story presents her not as a warrior rushing ahead, but as a calm companion who remained present during a time of sorrow and patient discovery. Because of this tradition, the torches gradually became signs of guidance rather than power alone. Their light suggested that even when the road curved beyond sight, gentle movement could continue. Travelers crossing quiet country paths may have remembered Hecate with a silent thought or a small offering left where roads met. The torch did not promise that every destination would be easy. Instead, it represented enough light for the next careful step beneath the calm Greek night. Ancient Greek artists sometimes portrayed Hecate holding two torches, balancing one in each hand. This symmetry reflected her connection with places where choices appeared. Crossroads were not only physical locations, but also symbols of moments when different futures quietly waited. The paired flames suggested balance, illuminating more than one direction without demanding which path should be taken. Their steady glow expressed patience, allowing time itself to become part of the journey. Unlike sudden flashes of lightning associated with other divine powers, the light of Hecate's torches seemed measured and enduring. A torch burns by careful tending, asking for attention rather than spectacle. This slower flame matched the peaceful pace of many stories surrounding the goddess. She appeared where silence already rested, adding only enough brightness to make hidden stones visible, while leaving the beauty of the night untouched. Temples and shrines dedicated to Hecate were often connected with boundaries, gates, or crossroads. In such places, the image of her torch reminded visitors that every threshold could be crossed thoughtfully. Passing from one space into another did not require haste. The gentle flame became a comforting symbol that transitions, whether between places or seasons of life, could unfold with calm and steady care. The warm color of torchlight differs from the cool brightness of moonlight. Together, they create a quiet harmony. While the moon spreads pale light across fields and hills, the torch forms a smaller circle of warmth nearby. Greek imagination often allowed these lights to exist together, giving Hecate a presence that complemented the peaceful sky instead of competing with it. Her glow belonged to the earth, close enough to accompany those walking gentle paths. Writers of later centuries continued to remember Hecate's torches as symbols of wisdom found through calm observation. Rather than revealing every hidden thing at once, their light encouraged careful attention to what rested immediately ahead. This quiet symbolism remained faithful to older traditions, where measured understanding was often valued more highly than sudden certainty. The flame invited patience, one peaceful moment after another. The gentle torch also reflected the practical world of ancient Greece. Before sunrise or after sunset, simple flames made ordinary life possible. Homes, temples, and travelers all depended on modest sources of light. By carrying torches, Hecate remained closely connected to familiar human experience. Her divine presence was imagined through an object known to every household, making her stories feel quietly close to daily life. Many surviving sculptures and reliefs show Hecate standing with calm dignity while holding her torches upright. Their position suggests readiness without urgency. The flames neither leap wildly nor fade into darkness. They simply endure. This balanced image has remained one of the most recognizable ways people remember the goddess across centuries, joining serenity with gentle strength in a single enduring symbol. As evening deepened over ancient hills, torchlight would have flickered softly against stone walls and olive trees. It is easy to imagine Hecate's symbolic presence blending naturally into these familiar landscapes. Her light belonged not to grand celebrations, but to the quieter hours when voices became fewer and footsteps slowed. In that peaceful atmosphere, the torch seemed perfectly at home. The enduring image of Hecate's torches reminds us that ancient mythology often celebrated gentle forms of protection. Not every guardian carried a sword or summoned storms. Some offered only calm illumination, enough to ease uncertainty without disturbing the silence around them. Hecate's quiet flame became one of these lasting symbols, respected across generations for its steady and reassuring presence. Even after many centuries, artists, readers, and historians continue to picture Hecate through the warm glow of her torches. The image remains simple and enduring because it speaks through quiet balance rather than dramatic display. A small light held with patience can become memorable precisely because it asks for nothing except gentle attention. That peaceful vision has traveled across time, alongside the goddess herself. As the imagined night grows still, the gentle light of Hecate's torches seems to settle into the landscape without hurry. Their calm glow rests beside old stones, winding paths, and silent trees, becoming another peaceful part of the world rather than standing apart from it. In Greek mythology, this quiet image endures as a symbol of guidance, thoughtful passage, and tranquil companionship beneath the endless canopy of the ancient night. As daylight softened into evening, many roads across ancient Greece became quieter. Travelers who still walked after sunset often moved with steady patience, listening to the gentle sounds of insects, distant owls, and wind through olive branches. Along lonely paths, some remembered Hecate, whose presence was associated with crossroads, boundaries, and the calm mystery of the night. She was not imagined as a restless force chasing wanderers, but as a divine guardian who understood places where one path became another. In the peaceful silence of evening, her name could be remembered with quiet respect before another careful step forward. Ancient writers describe small offerings left where roads met. These gifts were simple rather than grand, reflecting ordinary life instead of royal ceremony. Bread, cakes, eggs, cheese, garlic, or fish might be placed at a crossroads during the dark of the moon. Such offerings were dedicated to Hecate with humility, expressing gratitude or asking for protection. Once left behind, they were not meant to be reclaimed. The quiet act itself mattered more than the value of what was given, allowing generosity to disappear peacefully into the stillness of the night. These gifts became known in later tradition as Hecate's suppers. They reflected a blend of devotion, custom, and care for unseen boundaries between everyday life and sacred space. Some ancient sources also note that people in need sometimes collected the food after it had been offered. In this way, an offering dedicated to a goddess could quietly become nourishment for another person. The custom carried both religious meaning and practical kindness, fitting naturally into the rhythms of communities that valued shared life as well as reverence. Hecate herself was often imagined carrying torches. Their light did not overwhelm the darkness, but gently revealed what lay immediately ahead. A traveler guided by such a symbol would not expect every destination to become visible at once. Instead, only the next few peaceful steps would emerge from the shadows. This quiet image became one of Hecate's enduring qualities. Rather than conquering the night, her light coexisted with it, making darkness a place of calm movement instead of confusion. Crossroads held deep symbolic meaning throughout the ancient Greek world. They marked places where choices naturally appeared, where journeys separated before meeting different horizons. Hecate became closely connected with these spaces because she represented transition rather than uncertainty alone. The meeting of roads reminded people that every destination began with a quiet decision. Standing for a brief moment before continuing onward became its own gentle ritual, allowing thought and movement to settle together beneath the evening sky. Many travelers likely experienced long stretches of peaceful silence between villages. Without bright lamps or busy roads, the stars became steady companions overhead. Constellations slowly crossed the sky, while distant hills softened into pale outlines. Remembering Hecate during such journeys connected the traveler to familiar traditions shared across generations. The night itself remained vast, yet the simple memory of a protective goddess offered quiet reassurance, allowing each measured step to feel part of a larger and older rhythm. Dogs became one of the animals most frequently associated with Hecate in later Greek tradition. Their attentive hearing and awareness of the surrounding darkness made them fitting companions for a goddess linked with nighttime paths. Ancient stories, sometimes described the sound of dogs as a sign connected with her presence. Rather than suggesting fear, these images reflected careful watchfulness. In the stillness of evening, familiar sounds reminded travelers that life continued all around them, even when hidden from sight. Households also honored Hecate in quieter ways. Some families placed small shrines near entrances or gates, acknowledging the importance of thresholds. Every doorway marked a gentle transition between the wider world and the peace of home. Remembering Hecate at these boundaries reflected her broader role as a guardian of passages. Whether crossing into a courtyard or setting out along a country road, each movement from one place to another carried quiet symbolic meaning. Unlike dramatic tales of battles or heroic voyages, these everyday customs unfolded slowly. They belonged to ordinary evenings, familiar roads, and peaceful routines repeated month after month. Their importance rested not in spectacle but in consistency. A simple offering, a respectful pause, or a remembered prayer gently connected daily life with the sacred world. Through such modest traditions, devotion blended naturally into the calm patterns of ordinary existence. Ancient poets and later writers sometimes emphasized Hecate's knowledge of hidden places. She was linked not only with crossroads but with caves, distant hills, and quiet edges where cultivated fields gave way to open wilderness. These locations represented natural boundaries rather than dangerous frontiers. They invited careful observation and respectful passage. The landscape itself became part of her symbolism, encouraging slow movement through places where human settlements gently met the wider world. As the moon completed its familiar cycle, the night of the new moon became especially connected with offerings to Hecate. Without bright lunar light, the sky appeared darker, and the stars often seemed more numerous. This quieter phase of the month naturally suited reflection and renewal. Ancient customs unfolded without urgency, following the dependable rhythm of time itself. Every returning month brought another opportunity to remember old traditions with peaceful regularity. In surviving myths, Hecate also appears beside Persephone and Demeter during the search that followed Persephone's disappearance. Carrying her torches, she became a compassionate witness and later an honored companion. This role added another gentle dimension to her character. Beyond crossroads and night journeys, she was remembered for offering guidance during moments of transition and change. Her presence remained calm, steady, and quietly attentive throughout the unfolding story. For those who walked beneath the stars centuries ago, night did not always mean fear. It could also bring cooler air after warm days, slower travel, thoughtful conversation, and peaceful reflection. Remembering Hecate became one way of acknowledging the calm dignity of darkness itself. The roads remained unchanged, yet familiar traditions encouraged travelers to move with patience, respect, and quiet confidence through the ancient landscape. When dawn eventually approached, the offerings remained behind, the crossroads grew brighter, and another day's journeys quietly began. Nothing needed to announce the passing of the night. The simple customs associated with Hecate faded naturally into the rhythms of morning, leaving only the memory of careful footsteps, silent generosity, and gentle devotion. Across generations, these peaceful traditions became part of the enduring tapestry of Greek mythology, carried forward with the same calm grace as the rising light. As evening settled over the Greek world, Hecate was often imagined in quiet company rather than solitude. Ancient poets and worshippers associated her with faithful dogs, simple keys, and unseen spirits that drifted gently through the borders of night. None of these companions needed to inspire fear. Instead, they reflected careful attention to places where one path became another, where homes ended and roads began, and where the ordinary world met mysteries that remained respectfully unseen. Dogs held a special place beside Hecate. Their sharp hearing and alert presence made them natural guardians of thresholds, much like the goddess herself. Ancient people sometimes believed that a dog's bark in the night signaled awareness of divine movements beyond human sight. This belief encouraged reverence rather than panic. The faithful animal became a symbol of watchfulness, loyalty, and quiet companionship through the peaceful hours after sunset. The key carried by Hecate was equally meaningful. It did not simply open wooden doors or heavy gates. Symbolically, it represented access to hidden knowledge, sacred places, and moments of transition. A key could remind worshippers that wisdom often required patience and respect. Like a careful keeper, Hecate was imagined as one who understood which passages should remain closed and which could gently be opened at the proper time. In Greek religious thought, spirits belonged naturally within the structure of the cosmos. Some were connected to ancestors, others to particular places, and still others to divine service. Hecate's association with spirits reflected her role as a guide through boundaries rather than as a ruler of terror. She stood calmly where visible and invisible worlds touched, maintaining balance without disturbing the peaceful rhythm of either realm. Crossroads became meaningful places because they joined separate journeys into one quiet meeting point. Offerings left there for Hecate acknowledged her guardianship over decisions, travel, and unseen transitions. Bread, eggs, cheese, or small cakes might be placed respectfully at these intersections. The gifts honored the goddess while expressing gratitude for safe passage through both familiar roads and uncertain ones that stretched into darkness. The gentle image of Hecate carrying keys also suggested responsibility rather than power alone. A keeper of keys does not rush to unlock everything. Instead, such a figure protects what deserves care. Ancient worshippers could see in this symbol the quiet virtue of discernment, allowing every doorway to be approached thoughtfully and every transition to unfold in its proper season without haste. Dogs wandering peacefully beneath the moon became living reminders that the night was not empty. Their steady footsteps and attentive ears reflected a world that remained awake even while people rested. Within Greek imagination, these faithful companions belonged naturally beside Hecate, sharing her calm vigilance without disturbing the silence that settled across hills, villages, and sacred groves beneath the stars. The spirits linked with Hecate were often understood through ritual language that emphasized order and respect. Ancient ceremonies acknowledged unseen presences without inviting disorder into daily life. Such practices reflected the Greek desire for harmony between human communities and divine powers. Hecate's presence reassured worshippers that careful rituals helped maintain peaceful relationships across every visible and invisible boundary. Many household entrances also carried symbolic importance. A doorway marked the gentle meeting of private life and the wider world beyond. Hecate's protection could therefore extend to the home itself, watching quietly over those who crossed its threshold. The image of a guardian at the entrance offered comfort, suggesting that every departure and every return unfolded beneath attentive divine care. The key, the dog, and the unseen spirit formed a peaceful pattern of symbols rather than separate ideas. Together they spoke of guidance, loyalty, and respectful awareness of mysteries beyond ordinary perception. None demanded hurried understanding. Instead, each invited slow reflection, encouraging the quiet acceptance that not every part of the world needed to be fully explained in order to be appreciated. Throughout later centuries, Artists often continued placing these familiar symbols beside Hecate. Although interpretations changed across time, the ancient roots remained visible. The faithful dog still suggested guardianship, the key still represented careful access, and the gentle presence of spirits still pointed toward invisible dimensions of existence. These enduring images allowed generations to remember the goddess through calm and recognizable signs. For travelers moving beneath the evening stars, the thought of Hecate's quiet guardianship could bring reassurance. Roads stretched across valleys and hills, with many crossings along the way. The goddess belonged to these peaceful transitions, neither forcing decisions nor abandoning those who walked. Her symbolic companions reflected the same patient constancy, accompanying every careful step through the tranquil landscape of night. Ancient Greek religion often expressed profound ideas through ordinary objects. A simple key, the steady presence of a dog, or the quiet thought of unseen spirits could carry layers of meaning without becoming complicated. Hecate's symbols gently reminded worshippers that wisdom sometimes appeared in familiar forms, waiting patiently to be noticed during the stillness that arrived after sunset. As the night deepened, the peaceful company surrounding Hecate seemed to blend naturally with the silence of the ancient landscape. Dogs remained faithful, keys rested quietly in trusted keeping, and unseen spirits occupied their proper place within the ordered cosmos. Together they formed a calm portrait of a goddess who watched over thresholds with patience, balance, and enduring serenity beneath the stars. Among the many divine figures honored in ancient Greece, Hecate occupied a place unlike any other. She was not counted among the 12 Olympian gods who gathered upon Mount Olympus, yet her importance reached quietly across both heaven and earth. Ancient poets described her with calm respect, never as a distant stranger, but as a goddess whose presence gently touched many parts of life. Her realm extended into places where day softened into evening, where roads divided, and where silence invited careful thought. Rather than seeking constant attention, Hecate remained a steady and enduring figure, known through peaceful devotion across generations. In the ancient poem known as the Theogony, Hecate receives remarkable praise. The poet Hesiod explains that Zeus himself honored her after defeating the older generation of Titans. Unlike many powers that changed hands during the Great Transition, Hecate kept the privileges she already possessed. Her honors were neither diminished nor forgotten. This quiet continuity gave her a unique place within Greek tradition. While other stories focused on struggles for power, Hecate appeared as a goddess whose dignity remained undisturbed, carrying ancient respect peacefully into a new divine order. Hesiod describes Hecate as receiving honor from Zeus across many parts of existence. She could bless assemblies, aid travelers, watch over contests, support shepherds, and bring favor to fishermen upon the sea. These gifts were not presented as dramatic miracles, but as gentle influences woven into everyday life. Ancient listeners would have recognized a comforting idea within these verses. Divine care could appear quietly through ordinary moments, carried by a goddess whose presence reached many occupations without demanding great temples or loud celebration. Although later traditions often connected Hecate with mysterious nights and hidden places, her earliest literary portrait is surprisingly broad and balanced. She was associated with prosperity, wisdom, protection, and the careful distribution of blessings. Her influence crossed boundaries instead of remaining confined to one narrow domain. This flexibility made her unusual among the gods, whose responsibilities were often more clearly defined. Hecate seemed comfortable wherever different worlds gently met, allowing her presence to flow naturally between land and sea, heaven and earth, daylight and darkness. The Greeks often understood the divine world as a network of relationships rather than a strict hierarchy. Hecate's respected position reflects this understanding. She did not need to replace another deity or compete for recognition. Instead, her honor existed alongside the powers of Olympian gods such as Zeus, Demeter, Artemis, and Hermes. Ancient religion allowed many sacred figures to share influence, each contributing quietly to the balance of the cosmos. Hecate's place demonstrates how harmony could be valued alongside strength and authority. Worshippers approached Hecate with offerings that reflected daily life rather than royal ceremony. Small gifts placed respectfully at crossroads or household entrances acknowledged her gentle guardianship. These acts formed part of ordinary religious practice, blending naturally into the rhythm of each month. Such devotion reminds modern readers that ancient spirituality often unfolded through familiar routines instead of extraordinary spectacles. Hecate's quiet dignity suited these peaceful customs, allowing her presence to become part of everyday existence. The goddess also maintained strong connections with families and homes. Protective spirits were important throughout the Greek world, and Hecate could be honored as one who watched over thresholds and entrances. A doorway marked more than the edge of a building. It represented the meeting of inside and outside, safety and uncertainty. Such places naturally belonged to a goddess comfortable at boundaries. Her watchfulness offered calm reassurance without dramatic displays of divine intervention. As Greek beliefs developed over centuries, Hecate gathered additional meanings without losing the respect described by Hesiod. New stories emphasized her knowledge of hidden paths, the night, and sacred mysteries. Yet these later traditions rested upon an older foundation of honor granted by Zeus himself. The many layers of her character reveal how myths evolved gradually, allowing familiar figures to grow while preserving echoes of their earliest identities. Hecate remained constant even as the stories surrounding her gently expanded. Unlike some Olympian gods whose myths centered upon grand conflicts or passionate rivalries, Hecate often appears with remarkable composure. Her stories invite slower reflection rather than excitement. She moves quietly through sacred landscapes, accompanying transitions instead of disrupting them. This calm presence may explain why later generations found her especially suitable as a guide through uncertain moments. Her strength emerged not through force, but through steady awareness and patient observation. Greek religion varied from one city to another, and Hecate's worship reflected this diversity. Different communities emphasized different qualities while still recognizing the same goddess. Some honored her protective role, others her connection with Crossroads, and others her association with sacred mysteries. This flexibility allowed her worship to adapt naturally across regions without losing its essential character. Quiet continuity remained one of the defining features of her place within the ancient world. Artists and poets frequently portrayed Hecate carrying torches. These lights were not symbols of conquest, but of guidance through darkness. A single flame could illuminate a winding path without disturbing the peaceful night surrounding it. In this image, many later readers found a comforting metaphor. Wisdom does not always banish every shadow. Sometimes it simply offers enough gentle light to continue forward with calm confidence. Her enduring reputation demonstrates the remarkable continuity of Greek mythology. Across centuries of changing customs and evolving stories, Hecate remained familiar to worshippers. Ancient writers could emphasize different aspects of her nature while preserving the respect attached to her earliest traditions. Such lasting recognition speaks to the quiet strength of a goddess who required little display in order to remain memorable. Her influence rested upon steadiness rather than spectacle. Modern readers sometimes encounter Hecate first through later legends emphasizing mystery and magic. Yet remembering her honored place beside the Olympian order reveals a fuller portrait. She belonged not only to hidden paths, but also to the broad landscape of Greek religious life. Ancient worshippers could see her as generous, protective, and deeply respected. This balanced understanding restores a sense of calm that surrounded her long before later traditions added darker associations. Within the vast family of Greek gods, Hecate quietly occupied a place all her own. Neither distant from Olympus nor entirely defined by it, she represented continuity across changing ages. Honored by Zeus, remembered by poets, and welcomed by ordinary households, she remained a gentle presence at the edges where one place became another. Her story settles naturally into the peaceful rhythm of ancient mythology, inviting quiet appreciation rather than restless wonder. As daylight softened into silver evening, many people in the ancient Greek world believed that certain moments belonged to quiet reflection rather than busy labor. The moon offered gentle light for simple acts of reverence, especially where Hecate was honored as a guardian of boundaries, crossroads, and the peaceful mysteries of the night. Rituals were often unhurried, shaped by familiar customs passed through generations. There was little urgency, only the comforting rhythm of preparation, silence, and respect. Moonlight did not erase the landscape but transformed it, allowing familiar paths and sacred places to appear softer, calmer, and filled with quiet meaning. One well-known custom was the monthly offering made near the dark moon, often called Hecate's Daipnon. Families prepared simple foods and placed them at shrines or crossroads dedicated to the goddess. These gifts were expressions of gratitude, purification, and respect rather than grand displays. After the offerings were left behind, they were not reclaimed. The quiet act reflected an understanding that generosity could exist without expectation of return. The ritual marked the close of one lunar cycle and the peaceful beginning of another, following the steady rhythm of the heavens above. The moon itself held an important place in Greek religious life. Although Hecate was distinct from lunar deities such as Selene, later traditions often associated her with moonlit landscapes and the calm hours after sunset. Ancient writers and artists connected her presence with places where light and shadow met. Under the pale glow of the night sky, ordinary stones, trees, and winding roads seemed to invite slower footsteps. The peaceful atmosphere encouraged careful attention, allowing ritual and quiet observation to become part of the same gentle experience. Torches became one of Hecate's enduring symbols. Ancient stories describe her carrying them through darkness, not as instruments of fear, but as lights that revealed hidden paths. During some ceremonies, flames represented guidance, wisdom, and safe passage through uncertain places. Their warm glow contrasted softly with cool moonlight, creating an atmosphere of calm rather than spectacle. The image of a single light moving through the quiet countryside became a lasting reminder that even the darkest night could contain gentle direction without haste or disturbance. Sacred boundaries were important throughout Greek religion. Doorways, gates, crossroads, and city entrances marked transitions between one place and another. Hecate became closely linked with these thresholds because they represented moments of change rather than permanent destinations. People paused briefly at such places with respect, recognizing that every journey involved passing from one condition into the next. These peaceful acknowledgments reflected a worldview in which movement itself carried meaning, and where quiet rituals helped travelers continue with confidence and steady hearts. Small household shrines also connected families with the divine, Not every act of worship required a great temple or public ceremony. Within homes, modest offerings of incense, oil, or food expressed gratitude toward many gods according to family tradition. For those honoring Hecate, evening could become a time of quiet remembrance. The atmosphere remained simple and respectful, allowing sacred practice to blend naturally into daily life. In this way, religious devotion often appeared less as dramatic ceremony and more as a peaceful habit shaped by care and consistency. Incense drifted gently through the still evening air during many religious observances. Fragrant smoke rose slowly toward the sky, carrying symbolic offerings beyond the visible world. Different plants and resins were valued in different places and periods, but the gentle movement of scented smoke itself became part of the ritual experience. Its slow ascent matched the calm pace of worship, encouraging quiet thought rather than excitement. Beneath the moon, even the faintest curl of smoke seemed to belong naturally to the peaceful silence surrounding it. Ancient Greek temples often appeared especially tranquil after sunset. While major festivals filled sacred spaces with activity during daylight, nighttime could leave the marble columns standing peacefully beneath the stars. Moonlight softened sharp edges and reflected faintly across polished stone. The architecture itself encouraged stillness through balance, proportion, and careful design. Whether dedicated to Hecate or another deity, these sacred places reminded visitors that reverence could be expressed through quiet presence as much as through spoken prayer or ceremonial action. Dogs occasionally appeared alongside Hecate in ancient literature and later artistic traditions. Their watchful nature suited a goddess associated with guardianship and the spaces between settled places. Rather than representing danger, these companions often suggested faithful vigilance during the quiet hours of night. Their presence reflected careful observation and calm awareness. Like the steady glow of a distant torch, they symbolized protection that remained gentle and constant, quietly accompanying the peaceful landscape without disturbing its restful silence. Ancient hymns offered measured praise through carefully chosen words. Rather than hurried recitation, these verses unfolded with deliberate rhythm, allowing each phrase to settle gently into the surrounding silence. Hymns dedicated to Hecate acknowledged her wisdom, her guidance, and her honored place among the gods. Spoken beneath the night sky, they blended naturally with the steady sounds of wind, distant leaves, and quiet earth. The experience emphasized harmony between voice, landscape, and the slow passage of time under the moon. The changing phases of the moon provided a reliable calendar long before mechanical clocks. Farmers, sailors, priests, and households all observed its regular cycle. Religious customs often aligned with these familiar patterns, connecting practical life with sacred observance. Hecate's monthly rites reflected this natural rhythm, reminding communities that endings and beginnings arrive together in quiet succession. The heavens above became a gentle guide, offering dependable order through repeated cycles that returned month after month with calm certainty. Olive groves, rocky hillsides, and winding village paths formed the backdrop for countless ordinary evenings in ancient Greece. Under moonlight, these familiar places seemed almost timeless. Rituals honoring the gods did not separate people from the landscape, but invited them to notice it more carefully. Every breeze through olive branches, every smooth stone beside a path, and every distant hill became part of a peaceful world shared between nature, humanity, and the divine. Quiet attention itself became an offering of respect. Although artistic images sometimes portrayed Hecate with three forms, this symbolism reflected her association with crossroads, multiple directions, and her broad sphere of influence. Ancient representations varied across regions and centuries, revealing the richness of Greek religious traditions rather than a single fixed image. Whether shown with one form or three, she remained a figure connected with guidance, protection, and thoughtful transition. These enduring symbols invited contemplation instead of fear, encouraging peaceful reflection beneath the steady light of the moon. As the night continued, moonlit rituals gradually came to a gentle close. Offerings remained where they had been placed, incense faded into the cool air, and quiet paths returned to stillness. Nothing hurried the ending. The landscape simply settled into silence once again, carrying with it the memory of respectful gestures made beneath the stars. In the ancient Greek imagination, Hecate's presence lingered not as noise or spectacle, but as a calm companion along peaceful roads where moonlight and darkness met in perfect balance. As the ancient night settled into its quietest hours, Hecate was imagined walking the peaceful roads where day had fully surrendered to darkness. She needed no bright torch to command the night, for the stars themselves offered gentle company above her. In Greek tradition, she belonged not only to Crossroads but also to the silent places where travelers paused, where winds softened, and where every path seemed equally calm. Nothing hurried her steps. The world rested around her, and her presence suggested that even unseen roads could remain safe beneath the wide and patient sky. The moon cast a pale silver light across quiet hills, revealing olive trees that hardly stirred in the cool air. Hecate moved through this peaceful landscape with quiet dignity, neither seeking attention nor avoiding it. Ancient storytellers often connected her with the gentle mysteries that appeared after sunset, when familiar places seemed touched by softer meanings. The silence around her was not empty. It carried the comforting rhythm of crickets, distant owls, and leaves whispering together, forming a calm companion to her unhurried journey. At an old crossroads, simple offerings rested where generations had honored the goddess with respect. Small cakes, humble food, or fragrant herbs were left as quiet gifts, reflecting gratitude rather than fear. These offerings belonged to everyday life, woven gently into household customs throughout parts of the Greek world. They marked the meeting of roads as places deserving thoughtfulness, where one direction slowly became another, and every traveler paused before continuing with peaceful purpose. Far beyond busy towns, a quiet temple stood among cypress trees, its columns glowing softly beneath the moon. Whether visited by many or by only a few devoted worshippers, such sacred places invited stillness instead of noise. Hecate's presence was remembered through peaceful rituals that honored protection, wisdom, and careful passage from one moment to the next. The stones seemed to hold centuries of gentle footsteps, each one fading into the calm rhythm of passing time. Ancient poets sometimes described the boundaries between familiar places and hidden places as gentle thresholds rather than barriers. Hecate belonged naturally to these quiet transitions. She watched over entrances, crossroads, and moments of change without disturbing the balance of the world. Her role reflected the Greek appreciation for harmony, where every ending quietly supported a beginning, and every beginning carried the peaceful memory of what had come before. The torches often associated with Hecate symbolized guidance more than brightness. Their imagined light did not overpower the darkness but rested comfortably within it, revealing only enough for careful steps forward. In this way, night remained gentle rather than frightening. Shadows continued to exist alongside light, each giving meaning to the other. The balance reflected a world where calm understanding grew not from removing mystery, but from walking peacefully beside it. Nearby, the sea reflected the stars so clearly that sky and water seemed to meet without effort. Gentle waves reached the shore with quiet patience, repeating the same peaceful motion through countless nights. Hecate's journey, imagined across land and shoreline alike, blended naturally with this steady rhythm. Nothing demanded haste. The ancient world itself appeared content to breathe slowly beneath the heavens, inviting every living thing into restful stillness. Dogs were sacred companions of Hecate in many traditions, often symbolizing alertness and faithful watchfulness. Yet during this quiet night, even these loyal guardians seemed content to rest. Their imagined presence belonged naturally to peaceful villages and distant roads, reminding listeners that protection could exist without constant movement. The night held everyone gently, allowing both guardian and traveler to share the same calm silence beneath the stars. The constellations turned slowly overhead, following patterns unchanged across generations of Greek observers. Sailors, shepherds, and storytellers all recognized these familiar lights. Hecate's quiet walk unfolded beneath the same heavens that guided countless ordinary lives. The stars did not hurry across the sky. They remained steady companions, reminding every traveler that time itself could move with remarkable patience when measured against the endless rhythm of the cosmos. Wildflowers closed their petals for the night while cool air settled gently across the fields. Every plant seemed to accept the natural order of evening, trusting that morning would arrive in its own season. Hecate's presence belonged comfortably within this peaceful cycle. She reflected the quiet transitions that shaped the ancient world, where darkness was never the opposite of life, but simply another calm expression of its enduring balance. In Greek imagination, divine figures often revealed different qualities depending upon the place and moment. Hecate could appear powerful, wise, protective, or quietly watchful without contradiction. These aspects blended together naturally, much like moonlight blending with shadow. Her final walk through the peaceful landscape carried no struggle and no urgency. It simply expressed the calm continuity of a goddess, whose paths connected many parts of the ancient world. As the deepest hours approached, the silence grew even softer. Cool air drifted between trees, across fields, and over ancient stones polished by countless seasons. Hecate's quiet journey seemed almost woven into these familiar places, becoming another gentle thread in the fabric of the night. Nothing called for attention. Every sound settled naturally into stillness, allowing peaceful reflection to replace every restless thought. Far away, the first suggestion of dawn rested beyond the horizon, though darkness still covered the land with comforting calm. The stars remained bright, keeping faithful company for a little while longer. Hecate's final steps carried the same quiet certainty that had guided her throughout the night. Ancient stories allowed such moments to exist without haste, honoring the beauty found in gentle endings that arrived with perfect balance. The ancient night slowly completed its peaceful circle. Roads, temples, hills, forests, and quiet seas remained exactly where they had always been, waiting patiently for another evening beneath the heavens. Hecate's gentle passage became part of that timeless landscape, remembered not through noise or spectacle, but through calm presence. Above everything, the sleeping stars continued their quiet watch, completing a scene of enduring stillness that seemed to rest beyond the reach of time itself.